5, 4, 3, 2, 1. KenCast.
Hey everyone, welcome to Saturday. It's time for KenCast. Today will be a very special KenCast. It's a pre-recorded discussion. We're going to have a really great in-depth discussion about Karate Kid 2 with one of the best people on the planet to talk with about the movie Karate Kid Part 2, which I find sometimes people overlook a bit. Obviously, the first one is regarded as a classic, but sometimes people forget about Karate Kid Part 2 and that it's a really good Karate Kid movie as well. But before we get going today, I want to welcome our very special guest. It is Peter from Cobra Kai Companion Podcast. How you doing, Peter?
Hey, doing pretty good. Thanks for having me. You know I'm a big fan. I tune in as much as I can every Saturday, and I enjoy you and your plethora of guests that you have on. I do have a request though.
Oh, okay.
I love these countdowns. You know, the five,
Yeah.
4. You should insert some digital confetti. Kind of like it's a countdown. I'm always expecting some sort of confetti as you appear on screen.
Well, that's interesting because the first time we did sort of like this epic live stream, you were a part of it. It was kind of around New Year's, I think, right before the premiere of season 4. And that theme would go very well with New Year's and everything. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we should bring that celebratory confetti into it as well. But yeah, thank you for the suggestion. Of course, it's great to have you here in person. Yes, normally you are there active in the chat, and we are honored to have you in person today and to gain all of your wisdom about the Miyagi-verse and the Cobra Kai universe. So before we get going today, before we get into like news, so what little news we have, what are your overall thoughts of Karate Kid Part 2 and what that movie means to you as a fan?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic movie. I do see, a lot of people often say that it's kind of a slower movie, and I totally get it. It's much more of a dramatic movie than it is a comedy action or family action. I don't know what you would actually categorize the first Karate Kid, but obviously there's is there a lot more apologies? Sounds like somebody's blending a drink in the kitchen there. But I don't. I've never really sat down and think about like aside from the tournament at the end of the first movie, is there the same amount of like run-ins with Daniel and the Cobra versus like Daniel versus Chozen and like Tishiro and I'm forgetting the other gentleman, but it's 3
Right.
versus Daniel versus like 5 Cobras and Daniel.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's I want to say there might be a few more meetings between the Cobras and Daniel, but I think there are a surprising number of meetings between Daniel and Chosen and his posse. Um,
Yeah, and not only that, there's a few other things too that kind of happen, right? We have like the infamous ice break scene,
mhm,
and we don't really quite have anything like that with the Cobras. But
right.
you asked, what does it mean to me? It means a few different things. I've shared this a number of times, and I'm sure I've mentioned it on your show as well. But just the fact that this movie that has mostly Asian faces, like that meant a lot to me growing up, and it kind of I guess, as a child, I never really thought of it and how comfortable movie made me feel, just seeing people that look like me. And I guess I was lucky enough that I wasn't exposed really to movies like 16 Candles, where Asians were much more of a stereotype. That is something that I would learn later on in like my early teens, that like, oh, we were kind of the butt of jokes in cinema back in the day. And I think this actually came up surprisingly in my interview with Giovanni C, who plays Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid musical. He kind
Mhm.
of referenced the scene from what is it called? The Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, directed by Rob Cohen, who would go on to do the first Fast and the Furious movie. But there's a sequence for those that had not seen that movie. But Bruce Lee is sitting in the movie theater with I don't know his widow's name, but she's played by Lauren Holly. Is it Linda? Does that sound right? Linda Lee, maybe?
Yes, that's I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah, because I know his daughter Shannon. I know she's very active and to carry on the legacy of his name and whatnot. But yeah, in that sequence, there's the Mickey Rooney on Breakfast at Tiffany's, and he's kind of got the Asian face and the buck teeth and big glasses and what have you, and the entire audience is laughing because it was meant to be a joke. And Lauren Holly's character, she's laughing, and she looks over at Jason Scott Lee, who plays Bruce Lee, and he is not amused. He is, he's kind of like processing this. Is like, what? This is supposed to be funny, and she sees that he feels some type of way about that. And so I think that at that point, like, I was starting to be aware that that Asians weren't quite looked as equals on screen. And so seeing not just Karate Kid 2, but the franchise in itself, to have a Mr. Miyagi that is not the butt of any jokes at all. Like, that was something different and unique. Growing up a fan of Goonies, Data, yeah, a little bit of a stereotype. He's I don't know if the stereotype is like Asians are handy, but the fact that he's got like these inventions and stuff, I think that kind of like, I don't know, kind of speaks to like him being intelligent or what have you. But Data was kind of like low key stereotype. But he was a fan of mine, and a favorite of mine. But another character around this time, early '90s, would be Rufio. Definitely not a stereotype. He himself
And
has
Hook.
a really great, yeah, in Hook.
And Hook, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Dante Basco plays him, and I just love the line where he says, I'm the pan now."
Mhm.
So he has taken over, and it's just this really really cool character. So we have a long way to go, but I think to kind of transition into like the discussion of this episode, I think they're portraying Asians in a really nice way on Cobra Kai.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peter. That's a wonderful insight about Karate Kid 2. Really important one, because I was kind of unaware of it too, because Karate Kid 2, I saw it when I was really young, and this was my first introduction to Okinawan Japanese culture, and that's good that it was a good one, as opposed to like other movies, so um all right, let's get going with talking about what news we have.
KenCast News.
Yes. Well, everyone. Okay. So again, we're pre-recording this today. So there might be more news that's come out by the time we've recorded it, and when it's aired, there might be some news. But so we have just a little bit of news. Well, let's talk about that. Okay, so Peter, you guys on Cobra Kai Companion Facebook group, you guys are doing basically this countdown where you're rewatching the episodes together. Everyone needs to basically join your Facebook group because you're doing this like every day. And Mike from Cobra Kai Wisdom was doing his, and we had Hayden Schlossberg come on and basically tease that the trailer is coming out soon. So we know it's coming out soon. And I guess that's not a huge surprise at this point, but I just wanted to point out that's a great reason for everyone to join your Facebook group to listen to Cobra Kai Companion, because you do not know who is going to show up.
That's correct. I do feel that they maybe lurk a little bit more in our group because it doesn't have like, I don't know, 80,000 members in there like some of the big groups. We don't even have like 1,500. I don't think so. It's really easy to kind of go through our content, and one of our rules is no duplicate posts from the same source. So if you scroll down, the chances are it's going to be almost something different every single thing that you see. We try to keep it positive in there, and most of the people that have left because of breaking their rules or behaviors or what have you, most of them have left on their own accord. So we have strict rules just because we do have a lot of cast members, members or family members of cast members, because we've interviewed so many people, and we just want everyone to be respectful. That's really it, and I don't think that's too much to ask for. But often I'll see somebody who is really proud of something they did. Let's just say that, I'm making this up, but like, let's say somebody, a member of ours that maybe advanced to the next belt in martial arts, and maybe they'll post a picture. TB3 is likely to like something like that. Like, we have seen them react to like somebody's post just because they also want to say, hey, that's cool, and we see that. So I don't think anyone's in there like trying to get their attention, but you'll be surprised like what they comment on, what they react to. I do remember somebody posted something about hey, how come Miyagi's headstone doesn't really make a reference to him being a soldier, because he was awarded the Medal of Honor and all these things. Well, Josh Heald commented, was like, you should look a little bit closer, and I went to go find a screenshot. I was like, sure enough, it's all on the tombstone, Medal of Honor award winner, and a recipient, and
Mhm.
so it shows all that, right? But I think Josh Heald's wife even, I think it was at the season 2 or season 3 wrap up party, she shared like a picture of like some Cobra Kai cupcakes at the party. So sometimes we get random posts from them as well. So, but yeah, you never know what you're gonna get. You don't know who's gonna tune into a live. In that very same live watch along with Mike there, after Hayden popped in, not too long after John popped in, John Hurwitz himself. He didn't say anything, but everybody saw that John Hurwitz was watching, so everyone started like typing, hi John, and all that. So kind of like on Instagram, you just never know.
That's great. And thank you for mentioning Instagram because we have kind of some maybe news, some things we can talk about. This was a post today. This is Diora Baird, who plays Shannon on Cobra Kai, Johnny's ex-wife. And Peter, can you describe what we're looking at here and the connections you might make?
Yes. So the funny thing is, like, her caption is IYKYK with the snake 9-9 9/9 on Netflix with the eyes emoji, kind of like, oh, what do we have here? The funny thing is, like, I've also been been using the hashtag if you know you know, but for like other reasons, but it's funny that she kind of shares this picture of her in front of the door of her trailer is what I'm assuming. You can see the reflection that it is indeed a trailer on the opposite side of her,
Hmm.
and 9-9 represents when season 5 drops. So I'm assuming that she returns in the next season, but the big question I feel people may be asking is this actually today that she took it? We know that she posted the picture today, but we don't know if it's an
Hmm.
old picture.
Right. So basically, if it's not an old picture, are you thinking that this could mean some new stuff being shot, that type of thing? Or uh, so what's your thought process
Yeah,
there?
that's a very interesting question because if she is there now, that means that they've already, at the very least, have a handful of scripts, for the first few episodes ready to film. 'Cause the other thing that we have seen in previous seasons would be like a table read from some of your principal characters.
Right.
So for Shannon to be there pretty early on, like, this is all speculatory, right? Like, we don't know if they've
Right.
actually started production yet, but for, Shannon's character, Diora's character, Shannon, to be there this early, that would imply that we're gonna see Shannon in the first few episodes of season 6, which at the time of this recording still has not yet been greenlit officially. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah, a lot, a lot there. Yeah, and something else to kind of keep an eye out. How long will this post stay?
Right.
Because it doesn't spoil anything, but I feel if Netflix or the powers that be may think this is even too much for them, they may have her remove this.
Right.
Because again, because if this is a new picture and indeed taken today, then she kind of revealed some things that have not yet been official.
Right. Right. So if this is an old picture, though, it at the very least it would point to. I mean, she's anticipating being in season 5. Like she would. It almost looks like she's kind of announcing that Shannon as a character might be play a part in season 5.
I look at it that way, but yes, just because like we really don't know. It's all speculation.
Yes.
But yes, I would guess that. And also, I don't think that would be, in my opinion, that's not spoiler, right?
Right.
Because at some point Johnny does have to go pick up Robbie, and obviously, I would imagine that at some point we're going to see Shannon, see Shannon because because Robbie is staying with her at her apartment. Now we don't know if it's the same apartment because we're kind of going through the season 4 episode reviews right now over on Cobra Kai Companion, and there's a moment where Shannon mentioned that Terry Silver comes to her apartment. So, and we know that she has been previously evicted before, so we don't know if she got the same apartment back or did the LaRussos help her get a new apartment. So,
Right.
but I do expect to see Shannon again pretty early on.
Yes, yes, indeed. Well, so we're talking about Cobra Kai. We're talking about Cobra Kai season 5. Obviously, we have characters like Chozen. We know Chozen is coming back. Um, could we have Kumiko come back? Unknown, I guess. But that is a perfect segue into our discussion for today.
KenCast discussion.
Okay, Peter. So we are talking about the Karate Kid Part 2. And obviously, we've had characters from Karate Kid Part 2 that have showed up at Cobra Kai, but I thought it would be good for us to sort of take a step back and look at this movie, look at Karate Kid Part 2, sort of like the importance of the movie, which you already started to explain. It has a lot of really great qualities. It was actually more successful financially than the first one. But I feel like even in like home video releases and stuff like that, it doesn't really get as much attention as Karate Kid 1. And so I thought that we could talk about like all these great qualities of Karate Kid Part 2, and just why it should be kind of looked at and cherished, I guess, along with the first one and the third one, if you like it. Okay, so Karate Kid Part 2. So this came out in 1986. And I first saw, this was the first Karate Kid movie that I saw. And I probably saw Karate Kid 2 like 30 times before I even saw the first one. And I wanted to start by asking you, when was the first time you saw Karate Kid Part 2? And what did you think at that time?
I feel like I saw the Karate Kid Part 2 probably in the late 80s. And the reason I feel that because I did see Ninja Turtles 2 in the movie theater. And I think I saw the first one in the theater as well, and I know that I had already seen that on home release before those Turtle movies came out. Those were kinda like the movies that I would kinda, replay in the VCR over and over. Your Back to the Futures, your Ninja Turtles, and the Karate Kids 1 and 2. I feel at some point we did own 3, but that's just not one that I really watched. And I definitely watched 2 more than I did 1. And I don't know how often I saw 1, to be honest with you, but 30 times sounds about right, if not more.
Right.
But that was the one I just kept on watching, and I think that's because we just had more Mr. Miyagi.
Mhm.
I shared the story about like having 2 grandfathers that lived out of state, and I didn't really grow up with them, and so this was kind of like my grandfather. Just watching him on screen. But also, for those that don't know, pretty big fan of Chosen, and
Yep.
I've told people that Chosen just kind of reminded me of my uncle that I lived with. We shared the same room. He was, a late teenager. I mean, but the persona was there. He was very jokey, and I knew that he was also kind of dangerous because I knew some of the things that he would get into and whatnot, and I shared the room with him. So there's things I saw that was probably shouldn't have been around me, kind of
Mm.
thing. So the funny thing is, like, I went to go see Yuji just a few weeks ago. Over in Seattle at his restaurant, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, we sat down, and I had dinner there. He came to stop by and say hello to my buddy and I, and we spoke just about everything, Cobra Kai, Karate Kid movies, life, things that are going on in the world. So just really down to earth guy. But I also shared with him like, oh yeah, this is the reason I'm a big fan of that character. Coincidentally, my uncle just came to visit like a couple weeks ago himself from Colorado, and I was having lunch with him, and I was like, "Hey, you remember that character from this movie?" He's like, "Oh yeah," and then he recites the "You can keep for your collection." He messes it up a little bit, but
Uh-huh.
he remembers the quote, and that's a quote that stuck out to him, and he just kept on repeating. So I think he liked the guy too, and maybe he saw himself in the chosen character, maybe a little projecting there, but I think we were on kind of the same wavelength with chosen. So I think that's what it is. Like I just saw people that reminded me of other family members.
Oh wow, that's great. And we definitely will get back to talking more about Chosen. He's going to be obviously a big character in Cobra Kai season 5. But I want to take a second to go back to what you said about Mr. Miyagi and how this movie kind of focuses more on Mr. Miyagi because you actually did a um, a video on Mr. Miyagi called "The Mind of the Soldier."
You
And
saw that.
this is on your channel. And guys, you can go in the description right now and click on Cobra Kai Companion, their YouTube channel. And Peter did this amazing video, I think with Watch Party as well. But you wrote this video and you provided so many insights that I think I never realized just about his background and what he would have gone through in the army, what it meant for him to get a Medal of Honor. I don't know, Peter, can you tell us a little bit more about what motivated you to make this video and what you learned through making it?
Absolutely, and thank you for the plug for this. This was one of my proudest projects ever. I was actually voluntold to write this script. Brianna, my former co-host here at Cobra Kai Companion, she had done. She is one of the biggest crease haters, right? And her very first video was in defense of crease. So she was coming at it from, from the opposite perspective here, actually defending the guy that she hates, and she ended up doing one of young Daniel LaRusso. And then, like in one of our episodes, I don't even remember which one it was, but she's like, "Oh, and you're gonna do our Miyagi one." I'm like, "Oh, well, would have been nice to have been part of that discussion." And like I was like, "Okay." I am down for the challenge. I haven't written anything creatively since high school, so I'll give it a shot. And as we do here, I'm gonna have to kick this guy out pretty soon. As we do here at Cobra Kai Companion, we just so busy all the time with our day jobs and our families. Brianna had just had her first granddaughter, and I just had my fifth child, and so we're busy with the kids, busy with work, and we were still trying to pump out these episode reviews and the interviews that we do. It just got really it just kept on getting put on the back burner, and at some point I think the only way to get it done was to possibly commission somebody. And Watch Party and I, we kind of go way back, about season two, I believe is when we met. And I said, hey, I know your skill set, and I love your videos. I would really love to get kind of your eyes on this, and I will pay you to edit the video. And he said, okay, sure, yeah. Long story short, sure, I'll do it, because he wanted to see it too. And he read the script, gave me some constructive criticism, and I think it only enhanced the video. And I provided him with some of my own personal photos. And also, I thought, well, we don't know too much about Miyagi's time in service. And being a veteran myself, spent 10 years in the US Army, I was like, I think I could do something with this. I know enough people that I have served with that have some knowledge of, well, just Army knowledge in general. But what we were able to dig up was what Miyagi had earned in service in terms of medals and ribbons and what have you. And we see it only on screen when he's wearing the blouse during the drunk Miyagi scene. So I said, there must be a website somewhere that lists all of those, and sure enough, there was. Wikipedia is a decent source, but it's a source nonetheless. And I reached out to someone that I served under, and I said, hey, you kind of work in this field that I feel that with your professional, what's the term that I used? Opinion. Like I feel that in his knowledge, I feel he was the right person to kind of reach out to. But yeah, he did the research, and kind of looked up to see what somebody would have gone through to earn and be awarded such ribbons and such. So we do a deep dive on that, and that is a phone discussion that was played organically. I felt that needed to feel as raw as possible, because you're also getting my reactions too. Rather than us just kind of feeding you information. So you get a little bit of like, oh, a documentary style, but also a one-on-one conversation between two people talking about Miyagi's achievements.
Wow. Yeah, it's everyone. Let me put this up again. It's Miyagi, Mind of a Soldier. Everyone, check it out on the Cobra Kai Companion YouTube channel. And I have that in the description. And I just want to say hi to everyone in the chat today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you
Hey,
for your
Drew.
discussions.
I see Drew right there.
Yeah, Drew's right there. How you doing?
Hey,
Um,
Schrock. I think I saw Dave chime in and out real quick.
Dave Srock, I'm sure Kate, you're there, and
Right. Urbana.
everyone else. We are pre-recording today, so sorry we're not there with you live, but hope you'll still enjoy this discussion today. We were talking about Mr. Miyagi and the video that Peter did on Mr. Miyagi. I wanted to kind of also look at Karate Kid 2 from the standpoint of the development of the relationship between Miyagi and Daniel. Obviously, the first movie was kind of magical in that you saw this relationship form, kind of like this surrogate father son type relationship, and then really the second movie it continues that, and we see Miyagi teaching Daniel new things. Right here, this is obviously the breathing technique that Miyagi used to teach Daniel about focus. And this is so interesting to me because, obviously in this scene right afterwards, Daniel was able to just kind of hammer in a nail just with one hit. He was just so focused. But, Peter, I watch Cobra Kai the series now, and sometimes I wonder what would Miyagi say to Daniel, kind of like after watching Daniel's behavior, what would he say to Daniel? And I don't know, this image here of him teaching Daniel about focus, this seems like something that Daniel could really benefit from, I think. Like taking time to center himself. He seems to be very agitated, in Cobra Kai by Johnny and obviously Kreese and Terry Silver and everything like that. But this is just, it's a lesson about, I don't know, just peace. What do you think about this particular lesson? Because it's, I think, more mature than some of the other lessons in even Karate Kid 1.
Yeah, I think this is the one that they don't focus on too much. We kind of spoke, I believe it was off mic, about some of the things that Daniel does in part two here that we only see in part two, and he doesn't really apply anywhere else. Whether it's on the show or whatever, but it's teased on the show. But like the ice break, for example,
Mhm.
like this breathing technique, that this is something that he applies in a later sequence in Okinawa as well at a bar, and so where is that? Like, why is that not being taught? In or why is that something he couldn't use in the fight against Chozen at the end of the movie? Or how come it doesn't come back up again in part three? So we only get teased in season two of Cobra Kai, episode three, I believe it was, the All Valley Fest, or is it just Valley Fest? Might be just Valley Fest. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's something that Daniel could have used, and if Miyagi was around still, I feel I think Daniel and Johnny's relationship, I feel they would have become friends a lot sooner, with Miyagi there because he would
Mhm.
have seen it. Like Amanda's there, but Amanda's only there with Daniel.
Right.
If Miyagi was there, I feel he would be living at his house still and not with the LaRussos. And
Right.
maybe he can kind of give like, not necessarily an unbiased opinion because I think there's some bias for sure, but just like Daniel would listen to Miyagi, right? And Miyagi being a handyman, seeing that Johnny's a handyman, I think they can relate on some level there. And I think at this point, Miyagi would remind him like, Daniel son, you're 50 years old. Like if you've learned anything by now, it's to listen to Miyagi. Like you guys are same but same. You guys are,
Right.
like why can't you guys see it?
Right.
So I think it would be interesting had Pat Morita still been around because not often, but often enough, I do wonder, like, man, what if he was still around? Like, how would he have changed this scene? How would he change this episode? What about the TB3's narrative of the story? How much of that would have changed? Would they have been like, oh, well, we got to have Miyagi as much as in here because he meant so much to the Karate Kid franchise.
Right.
That is something interesting there. Like, would they had used Pat Morita as much as we think, maybe, or would they have not used him? Like, maybe they would have used him maybe just a little bit more than Lucille. We really don't know how it would have gone because this is about Cobra Kai. This is about Johnny.
Right.
So you don't want it to become a thing where, people are going to be like, well, it's called Cobra Kai. Why do we see Miyagi in every episode?
Right.
But I think having him around, things could have been escalated in a good way, a little bit more like the relationship between Johnny and Daniel, and maybe we could have seen Silver in like season 2 instead of 4. you know,
Right. That's so interesting thinking about what if Pat Morita were still around, and
that'd be
how
another
that would have.
great episode.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Oh my.
just just to kinda go
Yeah.
through some, like, how would this have been different, especially, like, the first time Daniel goes to the, cemetery, you know?
Right.
What if he went to Miyagi's house and has to
Right.
talk there? How does that change season 1?
Right. And guys, let us know in the descript or in the comments if that's something you're interested in. If are you interested in what if discussion? How would Miyagi's presence have changed the Cobra Kai series? In What I like, Peter, about Karate Kid 2 is we really see this. Like, this is the type of like fighting scene. Obviously, this is after Miyagi's father had died. And we're really getting into. So I guess we can kind of summarize it where obviously we see the aftermath of the All Valley tournament. And then Miyagi gets a letter that his father's very sick. So he and Daniel go to Okinawa to visit his father. His father passes away. He runs into his old friend rival Sato, and his nephew Chozen reunites with Yukie, his former love, and Daniel forms a new relationship with Kumiko. And of course, Daniel conquers his challenges and wins at the end. But this is it's such an interesting story because you basically have Daniel there who's witnessing Miyagi lose his father and go through that, whereas Daniel's already done that. And that was, I think, one of the most touching scenes in the movie was actually Daniel almost comforting Miyagi for a change about the loss of his father. It was kind of like a flip between a student and teacher in that scene, maybe. But we do have these scenes here with them practicing, and the martial arts, you could see Daniel's improved. They're sparring against each other, which is really interesting. And then the drum technique. So, Peter, I wanted to ask you about just these new techniques, like the drum technique, the relationship between teacher and student in Karate Kid 2, and how that's maybe different than Karate Kid 1.
Well, I understand it to be a baby's toy. This is what Chozen says.
Right?
So
It's true.
I think the jury's still out on that. Um, yeah, this one's interesting. Help me remind me again the actual question. Uh,
Sure. I guess what kind of like pointing to Karate Kid 2 almost being a bit more mature, like the relationship between student and teacher in Karate Kid 2, and then also these lessons, like obviously the drum technique, this is sort of like the basis of the secret move of the movie, but this also connects way back to Miyagi's lineage. And I don't know, what are your thoughts about just this developing relationship, developing lessons in Karate Kid 2, and your thoughts regarding the drum technique?
yeah, the let's see. You mentioned like mature. Like for me, I wonder if it's more of like the cultural difference,
Mhm.
in like the Japanese versus like the American, American upbringing and things like that. So it's different because this is like Miyagi's home. These are Miyagi's people. And the Japanese, it's so different, right? Their livelihoods and their just kind of like the idea of the respect of bowing and stuff like that, it's a little bit more informal with Americans. We could just wave, hey, a head nod or something like that. So I think it's so different that that also tonally you have like you mentioned the sequence between Daniel Miyagi shortly after Miyagi's father passes away.
Mhm.
I feel like people can look at that scene and go, it's a little long, it's a little boring. It's like this is supposed to be a karate movie, and I think maybe that's one of the other things too. And so I don't think they're really looking at like the maybe not appreciate the culture. Like I think it's definitely more a Miyagi movie. I often compare the Karate Kid 2 to like Back to the Future 3, where we learn more about Doc, and
Mhm.
Doc gets his love story with Clara Clayton. Who the
Right.
hell's Clara?
Yeah.
So and I've always loved part 3 because it's just so different and it's
Yeah,
just so fun.
I agree.
And so that's the same thing with Karate Kid 2 for me. Like, okay, wow, we finally get to know more about Miyagi because I mean, who didn't have questions about this mysterious little man? I mean, I ended up making a video about it because like maybe I can fill in some of the gaps, because there was nothing out there like that. And you know and you make great videos as well, and I hope people could check it out if they like that. It's kind of a similar thing. I do a deep dive, I do the research, and so it's just not like necessarily an opinion, but it's like everything that we say in there is based on information and facts, and the things that we do dig up. So not necessarily just a theory video, like some of the things out there, which are great. But
Hmm.
this is, the intent of that video was to kind of educate, based on what we have learned in history. But yeah, the whole Okinawa stuff. I think I think it shows maturation in both characters, really. Just the to touch on the relationship again, but the whole drum technique thing. I feel I don't remember if I asked Robert Mark Kamen about that, but he does like to make things up, and just because it sounds cool at the time, and he will openly admit, like sometimes he doesn't really give a whole lot of thought into it. Just sounded cool, kind of thing. And I'm
Hmm.
paraphrasing, but the drum technique, I think it's really I like it, and I think it's fantastic that there's like a the drum itself, there's an association with that, but it's one of those things where like when Daniel actually implements that, like, oh, Chosen really couldn't defend that, like he should know about this too. So it's just one of those things like, well, you can't repeat the crane kick because, like, for those that were even wondering, well, we're going to show you why the crane kick won't work because,
Right,
they too know how to use that. But the drum thing, when everyone busts out the drum toy too, like
right.
Chosen really can defeat that or block that. I like the look of it aesthetically, but it's just one of those. I wouldn't put it up there with the crane kick. It's definitely down below in terms of like special moves. You know, I
Hmm.
I would not wield the drum technique in a Mortal Kombat style Cobra Kai game.
Interesting. Yes, yes, indeed.
It
I
would be
know
more
that.
of a friendship.
Right, right. That is, that's a really good point because it almost seems like at the end, everyone knows what the significance of the drum is and the drum technique. They're like, hint, hit, Daniel, use this special technique. And yeah, Chosen seems like he doesn't know or he's confused. And I don't know. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Chosen is very much like Mike Barnes in that sequence. Like, what is going on?
Right.
you know, sh-
Right.
do I know how to stop this? No, I guess not. Before I forget, since we are talking about the Karate Kid Part Two, did we not? I feel we did. So I'm gonna ask for clarification here. Did we go over the that little scam that Chosen does to the villagers?
Oh,
Did that ever come
I
up?
don't know if we talked about that, but that's an important thing to talk about because that is one scam that didn't make sense to me, like watching because I it's like, should it be the other way? So yeah, Peter, can you tell us about this scam?
Okay, so I can't make it sound I can't make any sense of it if that's where you were thinking. However, when I went to go have dinner with Yuji, I asked him about that, and he also agrees. He says it makes no sense, and apparently, he says that he went to them. I'm assuming John G. Avildsen and Robert Mark Kamen probably,
Mhm.
and I guess he brings up like you guys, this doesn't really make sense, how this works, and basically he was like, yeah, they were just, it's fine, like nobody's gonna question it, it's totally okay, we're just gonna do this, and
Right,
that's that. He's like, okay, and
right,
so and that's what we have. So obviously nobody could have predicted. Maybe if this was like Back to the Future 2, you could have predicted it because they got a lot right, kind of thing,
right,
but nobody would have predicted 35 years later we're gonna have like people in their house with a microphone like dissecting these movies
right.
and calling them out on it. But yeah, nobody can make sense of it because it doesn't work. It doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anyone's watching right now, this is what we're talking about. Daniel approaches the market, and Chosen apparently runs this racket where people bring their produce in and sell it to Chosen, and they weigh it. And so when someone goes to weigh their vegetables, Chosen apparently is using weights to, you know, determine how much money to pay them. Daniel, one of the weights falls, and Daniel picks it up and breaks it, kind of implying that the weight is much lighter than it should be. But the problem is that if Chosen is stacking up very like all these light weights, something that it weighs like 5 pounds, Chosen, it'll be worth 10 pounds. So Chosen will be overpaying for all the produce. Did I describe that correctly?
You described it correctly, and that only reminds me of like this idea that we have that we an episode that we want to do with Drew R from the Last Row podcast, where
Yes.
we're gonna sit down and we're gonna defend our favorite baddies. And
Right?
This is a prime example that
Yes.
Chosen was actually a good guy this entire time, and
Right.
it was in front of our faces, and nobody wanted to admit it. They were just like, "Well, that scam seems bogus." Well, you guys, he was trying to give the villagers more money.
That's a great point. I
That's
love that. Yeah,
yeah.
Chosen, and he's so upset because the people didn't get it and they thought they were being cheated, but Chosen was giving them more money, and Daniel ruined that. Yeah.
Can you imagine if they did that in season 5? Like, if they brought that up? Like, LaRusso, you called it a scam, but I was trying to give the villagers more money.
Yep. I say there's a 50% chance we will see that in season
Yeah,
5. You know,
that'd be fantastic.
they're just amazing at doing that. So that's a really good point, Peter.
You brought it up.
Yeah. Well, now we have lots of great characters, and so I want to get your reaction to some of these characters that we see for the first, sometimes the only time. So here we have Yukie. So what are your thoughts about Yukie and the significance of Yukie in Miyagi's story?
Well, apparently she kept tabs on him without him knowing. She knew
Mhm.
exactly where he was, and I guess at some point she made it in her mind not only to not marry anybody else, but the only time that she would reach out to Miyagi would be if and when his father passed away. That's kind of it's kind of a interesting thing because like I feel like her happiness should mean something as well. It's like, well, you know where he lives, but he doesn't know where you live. Like he could have gone on to marry as well, which he did.
Mhm.
He didn't know that she would continue caring for him all this time. So it is really sad that this is like the only time we got to see her. Newbie McCarthy. N- Wait, what did I just say? Newbie? Did I say newbie? Nubo? Wait, Nobu.
Nobu.
Nobu McCarthy.
Mhm.
Yeah, she passed away, I believe, early '90s, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe
Oh, wow.
late. There's so many different celebrity deaths surrounding, this cast. I mean, also like Danny Kamakona also passed away like
Mhm.
early 2000s. I don't know. And with Pat, like I'm mixing up all the different deaths, there as
Right.
well. But anyway, this was like a really sweet story, and we get to kind of see Mr. Miyagi a little bit out of his element. He's not too dissimilar from his character from the first movie, but now he's a lot more happy and feels a little bit more complete. As a character.
Mhm.
When we see him most of the time, there's not a whole lot of like hurt. He's not really keeping to himself like he did the first movie, also because he had just met Daniel.
Right.
But Daniel does take a back seat in the movie titled The Karate Kid. This is very much about Mr. Miyagi. But yeah, it's something that I wish that Kumiko could have came to the U.S. with him, or if Mr. Miyagi decided to stay, for the third movie, and then like they would only call, and then maybe Mr. Miyagi flies down the second half of the movie to help him because of Silver. That
Right.
that could have been interesting, but also perhaps, with Pat getting that Oscar nom, maybe they feel like they had to make use of him and put him in a lot. But that could have been kind of interesting, right? Like if they decided they wanted to keep Yukie, and maybe the first third of the movie, most of it is like conversations over the phone. Like Daniel, I don't think this is a good idea for you to go to the tournament. Like maybe all of that is done on the phone, and then Daniel decides to do it in a way, and so you got less of the fighting and the trash Daniel, who's yelling at Mr. Miyagi, slamming doors in his face. Maybe we don't really get that, which I kind of love those scenes because it's like it hurts in a good way kind of
Mhm.
thing for me, and so I thought it could have been different, and maybe Miyagi showing up would have been a little bit more like, yeah, here we go, cue the montage, and here we go into the tournament, and now with like Chosen coming to the U.S., maybe that could have been a parallel too at some point.
Right. And this was, it was such a great relationship that we saw on screen between Miyagi and Yukie. And yeah, I mean, on the other side of that, I almost expected that we'd get Kumiko and Yukie coming back with Miyagi if he was going back to Los Angeles. And because I think both imply that like they would both would like to go with Daniel and Miyagi to Los Angeles. And but they kind of just stayed back. We never saw them again. I don't know.
Yeah, my thoughts on that really, like, I feel we could have gotten Kumiko and Yukie back. The fact that they were even mentioned, in exposition in the very beginning of the Karate Kid 3, we
Hmm.
we know the story. Robert Mark Kamen also verified it on Cobra Kai Companion that, yeah, like, I didn't want to do the movie. I had this other idea, but then they said, "Hey, here's some money." And he's like, "Okay, what you guys want me to say?" So like
Right.
if his heart was in it, I feel we could have gotten those characters back. I feel we didn't because they were still continuing to write the script even when Tig came on, right? Like, have you guys
Right.
heard that interview? They were still changing things as they were filming,
Right.
and I think Cobra Kai wanted to go method, so they're like, we're gonna do the same thing. We're not gonna have everything ready and
Right.
just kind of make changes as we go. I'm totally joking, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's and we still got some really great things out of the Karate Kid 3, but how much greater had Kevin been on board from day one, and maybe he would have like had these characters return as well. Could have been
Right.
really different.
That's a really great point. Man, I know Karate Kid 3 is so interesting, like the history of it and the what ifs and everything. So, yes, everyone should check out your interviews with Thomas Ian Griffith and Robert Mark Kamen for more info on all of that for sure. One more question, Peter, I want to ask you about Yukie. This is something I always thought was interesting, the fact that in Karate Kid 1, we see Miyagi drunk. Daniel comes upon Miyagi drunk, and he is very sad about his wife who died in childbirth. And he's singing a song that he calls Japanese blues. Okay, to Daniel, kind of like toasting to his wife who'd passed away and their unborn child. In Karate Kid 2, he sings the same song to Yukie. What do you think about that?
Now, I don't pretend to be the biggest fan, of Karate Kid where I can quote every single thing, right? I've
Right.
never been that guy, and I know some people would be like, "Oh, well, Peter thinks he knows everything." I have never said anything like that. Would you be able, before I continue, would you be able to say whether or not Miyagi has ever mentioned, "Oh, this is our song," or anything like that? Has he ever said anything like that?
He when they were singing this song, like in Karate Kid Part 2, when he sang the song, this was a song Yukie basically says that Miyagi was singing to her.
Okay,
So this would be before he met his wife. He was singing the same song to Yukie.
and what
And
about in the first movie? Does he make any mention of that song other than singing it?
he sings it while he's drinking and looking at the picture of his wife. And Daniel asks, what is that song? And Mr. Miyagi says, it's Japanese blues.
It could also, in my opinion, I feel that's a song that just calms him.
Mm,
Maybe it's something that his mother taught him when he was a little boy, and it's just something that is comforting, for him to sing. And maybe he's not like a big singer where he has this like, um, the a library of songs of go tos, at the
mhm,
karaoke or anything like that.
right.
But when someone asks, like, what's a song that can calm him down in, in a bad night where he's drinking and having the of what happened to his wife and unborn child. So yeah, yeah, maybe it's just a song that he sings to kind of calm himself, and maybe that's something that Yukie had heard before. We don't know anything about his mom. Maybe she passed away
Mm,
while he was still in Okinawa,
mm.
and she heard him singing that while he was trying to get his mind off the death of his mother, and so she's like, sing that to me, and why not? You know, he loves that song. Maybe it reminds him of his mom, so he does so.
I love that.
So yeah, yeah,
That's great. I
that
love
sounds
that.
good. I like that too. I think that's what that is.
Yes. Okay, so Kumiko. So what are your thoughts on Kumiko and her? Obviously, she appears in Cobra Kai as well, but her importance not only to Karate Kid 2, but to Daniel and Miyagi's overall story.
Yeah, Kubiko, love the character, and I'm not offended by it, but too often do I hear like, "Oh, that's my first Asian crush." I'm like, "Wow, okay, yeah."
Oh,
So, I mean, it's a great movie, and she's a great character, and she's beautiful. So I get it. I get it. To me, she was another girl that was very pretty, you know, as a child, you know. Not trying to make it sound like I was, you know, sexualizing every female character, but I was a little boy, you know. I recognized that she was quite gorgeous, and but yeah, no, I think her relationship with Daniel is very sweet. It's so different from like him and Allie. You know, him and Allie, you know, the fun American girl, completely different upbringing, right? Again, Asians in general are very you know, kind of passive and a little old fashioned in their ways. You know, I don't know if they still do that now, but I hear about how like the Asian women, you know, in certain cultures still like walk behind their husbands kind of thing. So the again cultural difference here is really stands out, and you know, there's not a lot of like colorful scenes between the 2, right? Like, the only one that comes to mind is when they go to the dance hall. Like, everything else is very kind of muted, you
hmm,
know, and very pedestrian. You know, some, again, may think it's a little boring, you know, but I think it's just something different that people, didn't really see back in the day. Yeah, again, with the Asian stereotypes, there were most of those were in the US, right? We're talking about, like, foreign exchange students and whatnot. So to have like just about an entire Asian cast filmed in Hawaii that was supposed to be Okinawa, I think you know I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling on here. Just get random thoughts that are popping into my head.
sure.
But yeah, yeah, I do also kind of find it interesting, like the idea of her being like Yukie's niece and not like daughter. But I guess like she couldn't be daughter if Yukie never, you know, decided to marry at all. Even when Miyagi left, when she was originally arranged to be married off to Sato, you
Right.
know, a wealthier family, and um, I'm forgetting some of the other things that you said, but
Right.
I just kind of mainly gave you my thoughts on you on Kumiko.
Right, and to me, it's interesting because, in Karate Kid 1, obviously, with Ali, that was, I guess, your classic teen, there was drama, they had kind of arguments, silly arguments, and, I guess it was kind of a teen relationship. In this one, it does seem like it's maybe a slightly more mature. It's not you don't have those, like, silly fights between them. Kumiko just seems like she's just so sincere. She's just completely sincere with Daniel. She doesn't have any other kind you know, of Allie's stuff, the class thing or whatever. She just really is immediately interested in Daniel, and they're both interested in each other, and,
Right?
so I
They're both
get,
free agents.
yes,
I
they're
believe.
exactly. They're both free agents. They both love to dance. And it's a slightly more maybe mature depiction of a relationship on screen.
Yeah, and
And
I think also you know you get less tension with Chosen because there are no connections to Kumiko and Chosen. You know, they never dated like Johnny and Allie, so it's a little bit different. Chosen is the trouble that seems to keep wanting to find Daniel, you
right.
know, and Johnny is just like, you know, there's that love triangle that continues on in the Cobra
Mhm.
Kai series that, you know, you got Johnny, Daniel, and Allie. But, you know, Allie and Kumiko, they both have some fire in them, but different, you know, different but same. You know,
Right.
she, um, Kumiko also has like this drive and, you know, her dreams and stuff like that. One could say, yeah, kind of a mature look out on life. Whereas Allie, we didn't really get to know like what her ambitions were, but we saw that she is very capable. She can stand up for herself. She knows what she wants. She doesn't care about class. And and we do know that she goes off to college, and that's a whole other story as well. The way she was written off
Mhm.
in the beginning of part two. But yeah, I think she was a great character, and kind of also one of those things, like, if Pat was around, but what if Kumiko showed up in part three? It does
Right,
kind of change, and Daniel no longer has like that platonic relationship with Jessica, and now it's
right.
Kumiko that's there. And I feel there could have been so much more tension too if it was Kumiko and Mike Barnes continuing on everything, because now that they have that established relationship from the previous movie, and not a new
Yes,
friend that happens to work at a pottery shop across the way.
right. And, what if Terry Silver targeted Kumiko? That
Absolutely.
that would have been an interesting point. Uh, John Alvinson said in a interview once that he
This
thinks
is the son.
sorry, this is the director. He
GL.
said
Okay.
John G. Alvinson said that Kumiko was the best girlfriend Daniel ever had. Would you agree?
Did he give any other context? Because like
I
I
I think it was part of like he was kind of comparing to Allie and just he was talking about the qualities of Kumiko and just that she was just like a I guess like a very sweet girl and that she was just the best girlfriend Daniel ever had.
I could see that, especially like from Cobra Kai, where we find out that in dialogue with Ali, and this is where they kind of TB3 and the writing staff, they kind of clean up the way that she was written out, where she's like, I hope you didn't, like, they were talking about the old car, and Allie mentions that like the brakes needed fixing, and Daniel doesn't really say anything. She's like, "You didn't tell Mr. Miyagi like I crashed that, or it was my fault, was it?" And so like we learned that she does a lot of like egging him on and things like that, and like Kumiko doesn't do anything like that, right? Again, so I think like culturally it's just different, and so like I don't I see what he's the director, right? He's
Right.
the like, "Sir, you directed Rocky and all these movies, so, like, I'm
Right.
not trying to say anything, but in my opinion, I don't think it's really fair to compare the 2 just because they're so culturally different." If Kumiko was Asian American, how would it be a little bit more different? Because we're more used to seeing someone that looks like me in a lead role that's a little bit that's a lot more Americanized than somebody that's still kind of like learning the American way. We're still in this like 30-year time period where we're still trying to like normalize, like, okay, no, the Asian Americans have been here for a long time. They are not like, oh, they are so Asian that they still stick out, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to remember the title of that YA novel that became like, I think they have two movies on Netflix where it's led by is it Lana she played Jubilee in the X-Men movies, but she stars in this rom-com where she has crushes on all these boys, but she's Asian American and all the boys are, different ethnicities and stuff like that. But that's not something we would have seen in the 80s and 90s, something led
Right.
by an Asian American like Phoebe Cates never really quite got that. She was always like the crush, right? Was never, I mean, we got Drop Dead Fred, but again, that's different. That's about mental illness and what have you. But
Right.
I'm trying to think. Some like Tia Carrere, did she have a rom com? No, and so she's resurfacing in this new Joe Coy comedy as an aunt, So like
Mhm.
in Wayne's World, again, she was. There was some cringy moments there in part two as well. With her culture, Wayne learning Cantonese in the first movie.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it would have been really interesting to see her in part three, Kumiko.
Well, I totally agree. It would have been amazing to see her in part 3. Although now she is back in season 3 in Cobra Kai, we see the return of Kumiko. And I wanted to get your thoughts because it seems like she's still holding a torch for Daniel. And I wanted to get your thoughts on just that element of it. And is that a source of like tension going forward? What do you think about that?
Maybe not going forward, but something that I think they were playing with the idea with, or with the idea of it. Did you, by chance, check out the supplemental material from the season three DVD?
No, I haven't seen any of the material on the DVD.
None,
I'll admit.
zero.
No, I haven't seen
Okay.
the DVD. Yes.
I will also admit I have not seen much of it, but the
Mhm,
one that I know that exists out there is whether I think I don't know if it's deleted or extended, but there's a sequence where it looks like there was some temptation between like Daniel, possibly also Kumiko, or maybe both, or one or the other. I kind of vaguely remember it. I believe they dance, or maybe at some point their hands touch, and there's something there. I'm kind of misremembering because like the hand touching thing, it might be on the show, but there's
mhm.
something that they kind of cut, and it kind of
Interesting.
reminded me of a conversation we had with Michael Jonathan Smith, who wrote episode 3 or 4, The Right Path. And no. He did write that, but we were actually talking about the episode where Johnny and Allie um, go on their date, to golf and stuff. And so the discussion in the writers' room is they wanted to tempt Johnny, with Allie. That's why there's like the almost kiss and the whole
Mhm,
deal with Carmen. They wanted to do that. So I remember seeing like that deleted scene or whatever it was with Daniel. So it looks like they were attempting to do that as well, and I don't know the decision behind it as to why it didn't make it. I don't know if Ralph's like, I don't want that for that character,
right,
because I feel like he could have a say in something like that. Um, but also it's like, well, where would that go narratively? Like, what does that say about Daniel's marriage with Amanda? I know
mhm.
some people were like, oh, Kumiko's back. Let's see if they get back together. Did you guys forget about Amanda?
Right,
Like,
right, right,
so that's kind of
right,
where my mind was went. Like, as much as, like, yeah, I love this legacy characters. I love to see them back, but we can't just put them back into the show. Like, it has to make sense for like
right.
our other characters too.
Yeah,
So
that's an excellent point.
yeah.
Well, another classic legacy character, Sato. So, okay, this is a fascinating character because obviously Miyagi's former best friend. He also learned karate from Miyagi's father, and the assumption is, of course, that he is just as good as Miyagi at karate. He taught Chozen, his nephew, and obviously he still has a beef with Miyagi, who he felt disgraced him. When Miyagi professed his love to his fiance. So, what are your thoughts on Sato? And we won't talk about his karate skill necessarily. I did a video, tongue in cheek video on that. But what do you think of Sato?
Well, you're kind of giving me a alley oop here because like I saw this incredible video where like what we're kind of questioning Sato's karate skills. They may not be that good,
Right.
but
That's funny. Yeah.
apparently it's good enough that he is the official trainer or something of the U.S. Army or U.S. military. I
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
forgetting the wording
Yeah.
on
He's
the.
he's been the official dojo of the U.S. military in Okinawa. I think in Naha. I think that's the city where they are. But he has the Sato dojo. Chosen teaches at it, but he's been training U.S. military there. It's the largest dojo in Okinawa.
Yeah, and that's what I'm waiting to see is who and what type of teaching is Chosen still into. Like we hear it in a throwaway line in season 3, and they're always looking to set up something. Everything is always deliberate on the show.
Right.
So I feel like we're gonna find that out in season 5. Johnny may question like, who's this guy, and why did you even call him? And
Right.
maybe we're gonna find out. Oh well, he teaches the U.S. military over in Okinawa. Maybe he still does that. So that in itself is chosen. That's what I love about Karate Kid 2 and 3. We know enough of like each of these characters where we're like, man, we could form like some really good prequels and spin-offs based off of like, the fandom alone. So
Right.
can't wait to see if something becomes of that. I don't think this is anything. I always take everything with a grain of salt with people I speak with, but Yuji did kind of wanted to pick my brain in what my thought would be if there was like a chosen spinoff.
Oh.
I was like, oh,
Ooh.
you wanna ask what I think? And
Yeah.
it's funny because like I don't think I really gave him my thoughts, but I kind of humored him. I was just like, I think people would love it,
Yeah.
like I don't think it's gonna be as big as Cobra Kai, unfortunately. But like I think Chosen has a big following enough. And not only that, what they did with Cobra Kai is make Chosen like part of Miyagi's legacy now.
Right.
And even Yuji has said that he's kind of playing, the Chosen a little bit like how Pat played Mr. Miyagi.
Right.
So I do think pre Cobra Kai Chosen, I don't think it would have been a huge success. There would have been enough people to like GoFundMe for the project, possibly. But now
Mhm.
I feel like you could probably get something, and unfortunately, it probably lasts like maybe 2 seasons. But I would welcome like a limited series, 8 to 10 episodes on Chosen post Karate Kid Part Two.
Right.
Maybe
Oh,
just flashes. Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
same thing with Miyagi, like, maybe
Yeah.
give me 16 episodes of that one, a limited series run. We know where to start, where to exactly end, and we're not gonna try to, like, fluff the episode out, right? Like, we're just gonna map it out, and this is exactly what we're gonna give you guys, and you'll either like it or not. We're not gonna do these few episodes, engage what people think, and kinda change them, just, to give people fan service. But, yeah, on the way home from Seattle, my friend's like, I think Yuji was like really asking for your input. I go, really? No, I thought he was just kind of gauging interest. And he's like,
Mm.
I don't know. I think he wanted to hear what you would actually think. And then like the next day, I actually messaged Yuji. I was like, hey, I was just thinking about that question you asked me, and
That's great.
these are my exact thoughts. And
Yeah.
he looked at it, but he didn't reply. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, maybe I was right and my friend was wrong. But then I think the next day he actually did reply, and just kind of gave me some thoughts on what he thought I said, and that was kind of it. But I thought it was interesting that he did ask me about that, because it's kind of the same thing when I visited him a few years back in 2019, where he's like, well, if my character showed up on Cobra Kai, like, how do you think they'd bring me back? Well, not knowing, a few months later I would see his character return on Cobra Kai, so it's kind of
Right.
weird. It's like, Yuji, did you know? And you were just kind of just wondering what I would say. So yeah.
Right. Well, of course, we've been talking about Chosen here, and obviously, Yuji did such an amazing job playing him back in the day, and also today, kind of updating the character. It's really an amazing thing to watch because, to me, there's just something about the way he played the character back then that really kind of got me scared. He really, to me, felt like bullies that I saw in school. Something about the laugh, something about the way he tormented Daniel at the time. He was so good in that role, and really, I think an iconic character in all of Karate Kid. Like, obviously Johnny's a very famous. William Zabka does an amazing job, but I mean, Chosen. I don't know. To me, he was like the first Karate Kid villain. To me, he's just iconic. That it's just that battle at the end. The stakes were so high. I mean, I don't know.
The highest,
The
the highest,
highest, right?
yeah, to the
To
death.
me, it made the tournament. I mean, the tournament's fun in a relatable way, but I mean, this really the peril involved was just insane. And man, would you want to go up against Chosen?
Heck
No,
no, no,
no.
no. I want to be by his side.
Right, right.
You used the perfect word to kind of describe Chosen. He was a Karate Kid villain. I don't know if I would categorize Johnny Lawrence as a Karate Kid villain. He's a Karate Kid bad guy. you know,
Right,
and that's it. And everybody has their own story. I don't know how you could spin Chosen's story, right?
right.
It's a little bit different. I don't know how you could spin Terry Silver's story. Okay, he did coke. Oh, a lot of guys did in the '80s that were bad guys, that were villains, and so like what you and Drew said on a previous KenCast is like, I just want him to be bad, and I
Right.
wanted so much, and I couldn't do it in the chat. I want is it Willow Ford, or like somebody has a song that's called "I Want to Be Bad." It's a pop song,
Uh-huh.
but like that's all it is. It's like some guys you don't need to humanize. Like, just leave them be bad.
Right.
So what I want to say about Chosen is, let me ask you this before I get into that. W- Um, did you know we were going to get the return of Terry Silver, Karate Kid 3 Terry Silver? Did you know, was that inevitable? Like, did you think like, okay, we're just gonna get him? Like, it wasn't gonna be, oh, they're just gonna change his character
Do you mean like
in season
when I
4?
first started watching season 4, did I think we would get back to like Karate Kid 3 Terry Silver?
Yes.
I would say yes, I did because that very opening scene, I loved it so much. and it really harkened where he's playing the piano, and he's just, you got that grandiose sense of self, just like that he just thought of himself as like, Beethoven or Mozart, and just he still enjoyed wealth and everything like that. And yeah, we saw him be kind of nice and stuff like that, but I don't know. You saw flashes of him saying "Danny boy," and stuff like that. And so to me, I was like, we're gonna get back to uh, Karate Kid 3, because I obviously kind of had this theory that Terry Silver is a psychopath. And so I kind of went at it like that, where everything that you see about Terry, he's a master of presentation.
Hmm.
He's a master of deceiving people. He's very conscious about how he looks to other people. And so basically, I would never trust Terry Silver. So I knew that he would probably be the same deep down. Anyway,
Now, on the topic of Terry Silver season 4, do you? I'm trying to figure out how I want to phrase this because I don't want to use the word miss, but would you
right.
have liked Terrence Silver for season 4?
Like for the whole, like
For
if
the
he
whole
were
season? Yeah,
if he were
if
Tofu
he stayed
Terry,
that if he
eh,
stayed that way, yeah,
yeah,
for the whole season, would you have liked that?
I really would have missed those qualities of
Okay.
Terry in Karate Kid 3.
And
So are
that's how I feel about Chosen.
so
And
oh,
in
okay, so you're saying
in season 3,
yes.
I love the return of him, but all we got prior to its release was this really short clip at the end of the Legacy trailer because it had just moved to Netflix. And all you guys who saw Cobra Kai, only when it came to Netflix, you guys didn't have the year and a half wait like we all did, waiting to see what is going on with season 3 because we had nothing. Like if you guys thought the season 5 stuff is bare right now, it was worse for a year and a half where we had zero things going on in the fandom. That's why we started the All Valley Trivia Championships for 14 weeks. We were hosting live trivia on YouTube, and that's how we started like getting a lot of attention to what we were doing in the fandom. And I think maybe that's another reason why, like, maybe John, Josh, and Hayden brought on Ralph and Billy to talk about this big move to Netflix, maybe as a thank you for like what you guys were doing while we couldn't put anything out. Like they couldn't answer questions people were asking them. The all the social media sites went dead completely. And there were no updates to give us. So so when we got the Legacy trailer, I was like, "All right, fine, here we go, finally moving to Netflix." And then we get that few seconds at the very end, and we're like, Wait, who was that? Was that Chosen? That's got to be Chosen. Like
Right,
that looks like Chosen." And then the line, "Are you sure about that?" Like it just
right,
thinking about it right now is giving me chills. It was just like it was everything, and so I was like, "Oh, we're getting Chosen back." And then we watched it, and then like that long con that he has with Daniel, just kind of like what was it, Dumb and Dumberer, where that long con of Lloyd, just to get Harry back, for that joke or whatever. Same kind of thing, like the nose honk. When I saw that flip, I was like, oh, this isn't where I thought it would go. And like
mhm,
again, it's still Chosen. I'm glad that he matured, and I'm glad that um he at some point he figured it out and wanted to better himself and become a better person. I'm here for that. But what I was missing was some Karate Kid 2 Chosen, right? So when the the season 5 trailer and that line in I Am Gasoline, that's like a sliver of what I was hoping we would get back. So I'm anticipating season 5 so much because like I think we're finally going to get some of that Karate Kid 2 Chosen again.
right. And you said before, you're like, you wouldn't want to go up against him, but you'd kind of want to be on his side. And so the interesting thing to me about Chosen is, yeah, if he still has that in him and he turns that on Terry Silver, I mean, how interesting is that?
Mhm.
And to me, it's interesting because obviously Chosen seems to have been around wealth. Obviously, his uncle Sato was wealthy. His uncle Sato was kind of a conqueror. He pretty much bought up everything. He bought up the whole town. He ran everything. That's very Terry Silver-esque. Uh, Chosen knows about running dojos, the largest one in Okinawa. He knows about U.S. military, training U.S. military.
He wears a lot
Um,
of gold.
he wears a lot of gold. You're right.
He only understands first place.
He understands. Whereas Terry Silver, it's Silver second place, right? So to me, that's so interesting because Chosen is someone who could psychologically understand Terry, which might be kind of a first because he's seen all these U.S. military. He's seen rich people who want to take over everything. He's been a bully himself,
Yeah.
and if he's come full circle, it'd be so interesting to see someone like Chosen who might have Terry's number.
Wow. Ken, I think you have a new video to make here. Just those last comments that you made there. That's some great observations there.
But that's fun, right? I mean, that's really fun. We might get to see
Yeah.
that.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm even more excited now.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's great, and I'm with you too. He was so good at playing that character, and he was so bad. He was obviously the character was what, probably like 18 to 20 or something in the movie. I'm guessing
I always thought like early 20s. I
early
felt like he
20s,
was and maybe because it's like the height,
right?
the height thing, and I think that's why Tig was perfect, to play Terry Silver, even though he was the same age as Ralph Macchio, like just that size difference
Right,
already makes you feel that he's a lot older. I obviously didn't think Chosen was like 20 years older than him or anything like that, but I
right,
always thought like 22, 24. But I don't know if we know for sure, but I believe Ralph and Yuji are about the same age as well. Like Yuji might be a year or two older, but pretty close. I think
right.
Billy's probably like the younger one of them all. Kind of same thing with like I think Tony Odell and Rob Garrison. I believe they were both like 24. When Billy was like 18.
Hmm.
So yeah, the ages they're all a little bit different, but yeah, and I know Terry does this very thing as well, but I think it's something that we kind of expect out of him being special forces and being much older and just more experienced. But Chosen, like when we first meet him, he's he's very charming. His
Right.
demeanor is
Yes.
very inviting, and
Yes.
so it puts Miyagi and Daniel at ease. And
Yep.
then to see him do a 180 in a dark warehouse, you're just like, what is going on?
Right.
So yeah, cut from the same cloth. One's just made in Asia.
Cut from the same very expensive cloth.
Yeah, I would
Yes.
say so. I would say
Yes.
so. So yeah, Silver's a
Mm.
billionaire. Maybe this Sato and Taguchi family, maybe they're millionaires.
Right. Well, I can't wait to see what's going to happen. Obviously, with Chosen, I have to ask you though, what is your opinion? Chosen against Terry Silver in a fight. What happens? Who wins?
I think ultimately Terry wins. I think Terry wins, but I think also Chosen's going to be your is going to be his biggest opponent, his biggest surprise. He will not. He's going to underestimate Chosen for sure. In my opinion, I don't want to say for sure. In my opinion, he will underestimate him, but I think ultimately, I think experience is going to win out. And so um, not just Tig, but Terry Silver is in great shape. I don't care how old he is. He's in great shape. He will still
Yeah.
kick your butt. So, but again, like still very little is known about Chosen too.
Right.
But and he's got some of these cheat codes. He's got these secret scrolls.
Oh yeah.
So it will depend. And for those that are loyal listeners of yours or viewers even will have heard, that point I joined you and Drew on the breakdown of the trailer where
Yeah.
I theorized Chosen will die.
Yes.
Protecting Daniel, trying to save Daniel, something. So yeah, I'm not
That's
scared to admit that I think Silver will win, even though I'm a Chosen guy.
Yeah. I gotcha. Well, and I guess I have to admit I love Terry Silver, but I have to admit that Terry will take precautions and will try to tilt everything in his favor, even if that means doing something a bit underhanded to gain the advantage. So,
If
he could cheat.
Yes, if people would like a reminder, again, we're kind of finishing up our season 4 episode reviews,
Right.
and a line that I missed and only stuck out because I have seen the season 5 trailer a number of times at this point. Terry Silver does mention to Kreese in episode 408 that I got my agent looking for other locations. So he already has the ball rolling at this point.
Right.
He has to win. He has to win
Right.
because he's already planning to buy all these locations. And
Right.
so if he thinks he's not going to win, he's going to make sure he does. If that's paying off a ref, and that's just a tournament. Now, when it comes
Yeah.
to real life and death,
Right.
he will probably do whatever it takes, possibly fight to the death. So we'll see.
Right. Now, and that also reminds me of a comment Hayden made on a KenCast, actually, when he mentioned that this is a different Terry Silver now. This isn't the Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3 where he's going to do silly things like win a point, lose a point, like he did with Mike Barnes. This
I would
is
hope not. 'Cause
right.
that was
This
just to end the movie.
right, right. This Terry has learned from that time. He's more focused. He's not going to be making mistakes. So I think that goes along to what you're saying. It's like the
Yeah,
ball is rolling, it will happen, and he's
yeah.
not doing stupid things.
If that's not ominous, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I know, right? That's so crazy. Well,
Like,
uh, oh,
another tweet, sorry to cut you off there, and I feel like you may have shared this previously, but John Hurwitz, he says that people are gonna get hurt,
right,
when Hayden kinda questioned what would happen in that finale, I think they were definitely trolling us. They knew exactly what they were doing, so
right.
there you go, perhaps, Bert, hits his elbow on a door, that's the funny bone or something, he's gonna get hurt, that stuff
Right.
hurts.
And of course, people have brought up because obviously Daniel's going international and bringing in Chozen. Terry, it apparently is going international and bringing in Kim Daeun, who may also be a master in her own right. And that, I don't know if you saw Alicia Hannah Kim. She tweeted, Mark Kerr's poster
Mhm.
for season 5, and it's like, oh, I forgot what he said, but it's like things are going to get crazy. And then she said, "You have no idea, mwahaha." And
Yeah.
so, and so, to me, that means Kim Daeun might be a huge factor as well, and she might be Terry's insurance policy. We don't know what could happen, but my goodness, if she's related to Kim Sun Young and she's a master herself, that could really help even the score against Daniel and Chosen.
I think so, absolutely. I have her on notification, so I will see everything that she tweets out.
Hmm.
So yeah, looking forward to the introduction of her character, and kind of curious to see how much she's actually in season 5. Is she only gonna be there when she's kind of needed, or will she actually help be there to move the story along and be part of that narrative? So
Right.
that'll be interesting, because we don't know how much longer we'll have not only just Terry Silver, but Tig himself. Like, was he only doing these 2 episodes? Because that's what Robert Mark Kamen spoiled, was that, oh yeah, Thomas is in seasons 4 and 5. He didn't say anything about 6. 6 hasn't yet been greenlit,
Hmm.
but does is the last of Terry in season 5? If he continues on, that's going to be another discussion at another time. But if he stops in season 5, does this new master slash sensei Kim? I don't know if we know her exact rank yet, or title rather, but is she going to be someone who continues the reigns of Cobra Kai? If
Right.
Terry, whatever happens to him in season 5, kind of thing.
You know something? I could be totally wrong on this, and it could be wishful thinking on my part, but I think once you introduce Terry Silver, who is so intimately connected with the history of Cobra Kai and John Kreese and Daniel, like he's so tied in, I have a feeling he's going to be sticking around maybe close to the end of the series.
That's
I,
fair because
I
you pull a guy out of retirement, you're going to use him.
Right, exactly, and there's so many different ways you could go with Terry, and he has so many relationships. Like, if this is a stuffed season 5 already, I don't know if we're gonna see Mike Barnes, we might, but if they just bring him in towards the end, I mean, that's a whole other relationship with Terry Silver that probably needs to be explored. Mike Barnes and Terry Silver.
Right.
What happened there? Do they have beefs? Are they gonna go at each other? Are they gonna work together? So, it seems like there's so much story potential with Terry being around, at least, that I hope they keep him as a big bad for the rest of the show. But I don't know. That's just me.
I mean,
Um,
I just like the idea of an actual big bad, and not like, is he gonna be good this season? Is he gonna be
right,
bad next season? Like, let's
right.
pump the brakes on that, and let's just stop the will they, won't they? Like Johnny
Hmm.
and Daniel, look, just work together because you guys are better together. Terry
Right.
Silver, you're just bad, so just be bad.
Right.
Yeah, the whole kind of like, oh, is this where this kid turns? Like, I think we've got like 4 seasons of that already. So we'll see. We'll see how they approach season 5, because I think it sounds like they don't want to repeat what they've done in previous seasons like too closely. Things are going to mirror each other, obviously, because like different but same, different dojos, but they kind of do similar things. So I
Right.
see certain parallels and stuff like that, but I don't think they want to repeat a season. So they continue to say like, "Oh, you guys have no idea what we got for the next season. You guys aren't even ready for that finale." So yeah, they're being creative, and they continue to deliver, and the integrity of their love for the story it all remains intact. So I'm not worried. I'm just starting to get a little impatient, like
Yes.
everyone else, starting to
Oh,
settle in a little.
the shorter time there is before season 5, the longer it feels. Definitely
It
for
really
sure.
does, doesn't it?
Well, Peter, I have to ask you about actually the most important character in Karate Kid 2 that we haven't talked about yet. Okay. I need to get your thoughts.
You know what I was about to ask, is it the mailman?
Okay, so this is the mailman. And obviously you have worked with and for the US Postal Service. You understand how everything should work. And I just need to get your reaction to this guy who brings in the letter. And I don't know, you could say he kind of maybe overstays his welcome a little bit. He's a little bit entranced by Mr. Miyagi's backyard. Do you feel like this is a good professional example of um, a letter carrier?
I mean, it's not the best example by any means, but I can see somebody like this. It's really difficult because I've been employed by the USPS for 15 years, and this clearly predates even mine.
Right.
Well, I mean, this is '84, so I was already born, but so I don't know how different things were back there. But I'll tell you, like, if it was me in this position, if somebody's not answering their door, I am leaving a notice, right? Like
Right.
you need a signature. Well, I'm not gonna walk around the house, but to in his defense, he's hearing some hammering in the backyard. Oh, they are home. This is a letter from Okinawa. I'm gonna try to kind of go the extra distance to get this delivered and signed so I can deliver it, because the alternative would be to leave a notice. Mr. Miyagi will have the options, and again, I don't know if this is what they did back then, but now Mr. Miyagi would have the option of us having to redeliver on a day that's more
Mhm.
convenient for him, or he would have to travel to his post office, wait in that long line, and get his note. Well, again, different times, but now you can go to the side door, ring the doorbell. Hey, I'm here to pick up this thing that notice was left for. He does overstay his welcome because it does not appear that they're on that level. Like, I have people that I
Mhm.
deliver to that would consider me family. I have seen newlyweds move into a house on the route. The wife would get pregnant and then the baby would be born. Like, I am part of that sometimes. This guy can't even say Mr. Miyagi correctly. So it's like, well, you guys may have spoken together, but like, I don't think you're in any position to be like, hey, this looks beautiful. I'm going to bring my wife if that's all right. Yeah,
Right.
so I think he's definitely overstaying his welcome as being a little extra here. But I believe people like this exist for sure.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
was wondering about that, like the whole like, "Hey, do you mind if I bring my wife and come by and take a look?" Um,
In his mind, it's harmless. Like, it's
mhm,
it's not that big of a deal for us. Like, as an audience member, we're like, "This is a little cringy, sir. Like,
right.
what are you even doing?" But
Right.
it's harmless. Maybe he's trying to like let Miyagi know. Maybe he also served in the military and may know what it's like for this Japanese man. Who he may or may not know that is also a veteran. But
Right.
I feel there are some people that in their own way want to say like, hey, I accept you,
Right.
like
Right.
you don't have to, you don't fear me, I don't think anything negative about your people, kind of thing.
Right.
Again, kind of cringy stuff, but like I believe this to be like someone that actually can exist in the real world. He just thinks it's harmless and he means nothing by it. He hopes he's not offending, but just wants to be like, "I would love to bring my wife by, she's into this stuff." That's really it. That's really it. I think he seems to be an okay character.
Yeah.
But I just
Okay.
question just walking back there, that's kind of where I draw the line, but it's totally fine. But like, yeah, if he knew Miyagi like that, then I'd say walk back there because you heard some hammering, because maybe Mr. Miyagi is often, remodeling things and he's very handy. So,
Right.
but you're wasting too much time back there.
Right. Oh, well, thank you so much. I have been wondering that my entire life, and so thank you for the expert answer, on
Happy to clear that up. Again,
yeah.
now, Mr. Mailman here, he would be why he spent so much time in that backyard because we have the real time GPS. This would be considered a
Oh,
stationary event that they would actually question at this address. Why were you here for this amount of time? And he would have to have a good reason for it. So,
wow. How interesting.
exactly.
Okay.
That's something you learn on KenCast.
Yes, definitely. I hope you've all learned something. I have too. My goodness, thank you, Peter. I
Yeah.
also wanted to bring up you traveled to Hawaii to actually look at some of these locations. So,
Specifically. No, I'm totally
yes.
kidding.
Now, can you tell us where you are and what we're looking at right here?
Yes, absolutely. Great picture. It's funny because you did like this picture earlier today, and I was like, oh, kind of an odd picture for Ken to like, super random from earlier this year.
Mhm.
But I figured you were looking at it for reasons. I didn't realize it was for this. So this is a little. I'm like, oh, okay, well there it is. That's why he pulled this. My wife and I we went on a trip to Hawaii to Oahu, and it was our first time traveling without any of the kids in like 11 years. And the last time we went, it was for like our 1 year anniversary to Hawaii. And so we went back, and just by happenstance, I was like, you know what? Were any of the like scenes filmed in Oahu? And sure enough, there was. There was at least two. I'm kind of forgetting one of them, and we were actually going on this hike on this afternoon, and surprisingly, where I'm standing at right now was on the way there. And I was like, if we could stop by somewhere, they filmed Karate Kid 2, and it was a beautiful spot, and so the scene here is where Daniel and Kumiko are running kind of underneath this bridge. And you see like this, I don't know actually what's fake or real, but
Right.
this is during the glory of love, and they're kind of climbing down, and the picture of me is with the bridge in the background, and I got as close as I could. It was a little bit further down to drive down and actually walk down there, which I think I could have, but it was a little far for me to walk by foot. A lot of bodies of water in the way, so just really beautiful. The rocks and all that. The water was beautiful that day. The weather was, it was clear, no clouds in the sky really, and I'm wearing an Eagle Fang shirt. Yeah, so there you go. That's another thing.
Yes, absolutely. And then looking the other way, is this the same? This is where they're looking, and they see the castle, right? This is another picture you took. They kind of did
Yeah.
some special effects, obviously some compositing, but
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, Kumiko and Daniel are looking at that the castle. I'm blanking on the name. If you gave me four options, I'd probably still choose the wrong one. But they're over by the bridge, underneath the bridge, kind of looking at this plane with the not a plane, but a plane like um. Help me out with words here. The is it called a plane where it's just like land?
yeah,
This piece of
I guess
land.
it's yeah, kind of like it's kind of a beach, but kind of just a rocky beach. It's kind of like this flat area.
Yeah, and they like you said, like they have this like composite of the castle in the background there, and so like my picture was it without the composite, obviously,
Mhm.
from my vantage point. I don't think I'm standing where they are. I don't think I'm close, but I'm pretty sure that is the same body of land that where they put that on.
Yep, it looks like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so amazing, and, so that's an amazing trip. I mean, would you recommend, like, diehard fans that if they happen to be out in Hawaii to track down these locations? It
Oh
just looks
yeah.
beautiful anyway.
It really does. I mean, if you're a diehard fan, I don't think I need to tell you. You're probably already making that part of your trip for really. But no, it was breathtaking. It's a beautiful sight, regardless. If you're a Karate Kid fan or not. But once I got there, I kind of meandered off on my own. At one point, I was
Right.
so far. My wife's like, "Hey, let me take a picture of you," because like I was standing on this really high rock and whatnot. I was just trying to get to all these different angles to get close enough to that bridge, so that way people can kind of be able to see the comparison in the photos. Be like, oh yeah, that is it. I would imagine if I was much closer, you can probably see some of the changes over the years. I've gone to um, like filming locations for Back to the Future, like where George climbs up on that tree and kind of he's a peeping tom and looks at Lorraine through the window, but
Right.
the tree and the surrounding like other trees around it and bushes, they've all grown in size, so it's always very interesting to kind of see how much time has changed the landscape of everything.
Absolutely. Well, Peter, we have had this great discussion about Karate Kid Part 2. Kind of looking back on everything we've talked about, do you have any like sort of final thoughts about the movie or things you'd like to say to people maybe who haven't seen it in a long time or maybe have never seen it at all?
No, absolutely. It's a must watch, and I have a very unique experience now after having visit the set. Like I got to visit the set. For those that don't know, I have a number of images, pictures of me inside Miyagi Do. Standing in front of rules number 1 and 2, standing in front of the Miyagi's photo where Sam and Miguel make out in front of. Like I have a picture with me there, but just having been there and then going back and rewatch the Karate Kid Part 2, I felt a little bit closer to that world and to those characters. So I have that unique experience. But if you have not seen the Karate Kid 2 at all, or it's been a long time, it's definitely worth a revisit. With Chosen coming back, it'll be nice to kind of compare. But they have great characters that the legacy characters came back in the previous seasons. So I don't know if there's a really good reason that like why did you avoid that one? Like it would have been cool to kind of see that backstory a little bit leading up to those characters return. But yeah, I think I guess if you're just more of like a loyalist to Cobra Kai, I can see why maybe you skip out on that one because there is no Cobra Kai. You got Chosen,
Right.
who's definitely not Cobra Kai. Whereas the colors of the black and the yellow, the
Mhm.
Pittsburgh colors. But yeah, if you're looking for Cobras, that movie's not for you. But if you can appreciate Miyagi, his legacy, and characters like Chosen and Kumiko and Yukie, who writes these fantastic letters, to and fro Miyagi in 304. It's definitely worth a watch. It's 2 hours. I'm sure people have watched worse stuff out there. That you felt like you wasted your time. I don't think Karate Kid 2 is a waste of anybody's time. Again,
Right.
unless you want Cobras.
Right. And that's an issue. I never thought about it that way, but you're right. It's like we almost get no Cobras. You get a little bit, very little bit at the beginning, kind of wrapping up the events of the All Valley tournament. But yeah, you're right. But like Chosen and his posse, I mean, that's a whole different level of bullying. And again, as we said, the stakes are higher. Like these people mean business. I mean,
The
they're
the
they're
stakes are higher, but oh my gosh, like I keep telling myself I want to do some sort of video on this, but Chosen has some really badass lines.
yeah,
Daniel doesn't want any trouble, so he says, "Well, maybe trouble looking for you." Who
right,
says that? Johnny
right,
doesn't.
right,
you
right,
know, um, break ice or break neck, or
right.
so there's that, and um, oh gosh, what else? I know there's plenty of them out there. You keep for your collection, but that's not so badass. But
Right.
that's a very popular one and one that people go to. You dance like geisha. Like
Right.
there's a lot of bullying from Chosen. He's
Mhm.
kind of like I don't know if this is a good comparison, but Steven Seagal, he like talks trash when he's
Right.
about to kick your butt. That's what Chosen does. Chosen does a lot of trash talk, before he, you know, before your number is up, basically.
Yep.
So he's a different type of cat, and I think that's why a lot of people are excited because him and Terry are so different, and they are like the two baddest villains in the Miyagi verse.
Yep. Oh, I can't wait. Man, this has got me so excited for season 5. This is
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Everyone, go check out the Cobra Kai Companion podcast. I know a lot of you are already listening to it, but check out in the description the links to his YouTube channel. Also, check out podcasts really on everywhere you can find podcasts, right?
Absolutely, yeah, everywhere. We have not been yet told like, "Oh, you guys don't exist on this platform," but, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, quite literally everywhere. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, we should be available.
Absolutely. And people should join your Facebook group as well.
Yes, we just have one question to ask, and please answer that question because that just verifies whether or not you're a bot and select
Right.
whether or not you want to follow our rules. That's kind of self-explanatory. If you want to stay in the group, you follow the rules. They're not, it's the same type of rules most people have. We just might enforce it a little bit more than other people. That's really it. So,
Right.
but we have a good time in there.
Yep. Great community. We've got lots of rewatches coming up all the way to season 5. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
including season 5. That
include
will be part of the watch. Yeah, it's
oh,
50 days of Cobra Kai.
oh, that's great. That's wonderful. All right, everyone, definitely check it out. And thank you all for watching today. Come back. We're going to be doing KenCast, maybe even a lot more as we start to get more content. Who knows? Maybe stuff has popped up. This has been a pre-recorded KenCast, so maybe some other materials have popped up before this. And don't worry, we will all get to those very soon. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your comments. Go ahead and hit subscribe. Go ahead and put comments down. Go ahead and subscribe to Cobra Kai Companion as well. And we
It's
look.
free.
It's totally free, and
It's
you'll feel
free.
so good. You'll feel so
Yeah.
good for doing it.
Free
Uh,
95. Just hit subscribe both channels.
exactly. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great weekend.